Hi, everyone. We are from the Move for Human Rights group with Our Bodies, Our Voice. I'm Anika.
And I'm Magdalena.
Our group members not a part of this podcast today are Tolga and AJ. Before we get into this podcast, we wanted to give a trigger warning because we will be discussing topics of consent, fetishization, and sexual violence.
Our topic is about how individuals from diverse cultural backgrounds experience identity, belonging, consent, and social inclusion in the Netherlands, and how these experiences are shaped by migration, cultural norms, and societal attitudes. To address the topic, the four of us each interviewed various participants from different backgrounds about this theme.
For clarity, we wanted to provide our own definitions in the context of our topic. For us, belonging is defined as feeling included or accepted and living freely as your authentic self without fear of discrimination or othering in the society you live in. Consent is an unambiguous agreement to engage in any activity, whether it involves sexual or personal boundaries. And we define fetishization as the act of objectifying someone sexually based on desire of their culture instead of their personhood.
For the people who have moved to the Netherlands, all three of these concepts often unite into one issue. Feeling othered or discriminated against and often sexualized for cultural background, while not having instruments such as consent or boundaries to deal with these things, may be incredibly challenging for newcomers.
Exactly. A common theme we witnessed in regards to belonging is never feeling accepted or included in Dutch society, no matter how long they lived here. A participant from an African background said that she moved to the Netherlands with the perception of facing racism was inevitable. She knew she'd be perceived as different and stereotyped and just had to accept this harsh reality. Another participant, also of African origin, shared similar sentiments, stating that, and I quote, "I don't see them as a culture where you can integrate," referring to the Netherlands. Her saying this made me wonder, maybe integration shouldn't be the goal. What will it take for people to feel accepted and included in a place they call their home?
Yeah, that is the real question. This sentiment is also shared by other participants coming from other backgrounds. For example, an Indonesian woman that we've interviewed explains that growing up there affected her integration into Dutch society. She contrasts Indonesia's more collective social style with the more individualistic culture in the Netherlands, and mentioned she felt strange at first about direct behavior, intrusive questions, and how openly people comment on culture. After just moving, another participant with Dutch and Indian ancestry shared that she enjoyed living in the Netherlands and viewed the country from a more quote-unquote superior, modern, and innovative lens. However, she changed her opinion after interacting with the culture and society more. For instance, while studying in Dutch Catholic school, she was the only international student. Other Dutch students and even teachers were not exposed to any information about India except for stereotypes, which made her feel othered and isolated.
Another example of stereotyping that was shared with me was when a participant described being told that Africans come to Europe to seek greener pastures while bringing their, quote, barbaric behaviors with them. She challenged these narratives by pointing out the hypocrisy given Europe's colonial history, stating, and I quote, "What they're saying we did is what their ancestors did."
Yeah, and many immigrants find themselves in situations where they need to protect themselves from the stereotypes. For example, one of our participants shared that when it comes to belonging, they carefully choose the people who they communicate and build relationship with. One of them even mentioned that when interacting with new people, she purposefully asks specific questions regarding her culture and religion to determine if she feels safe building a relationship with this particular person to protect herself from feeling insecure at some point.
To further expand on this idea you're mentioning of cultural and religious comfort, one participant expressed discomfort regarding her Christian identity. While she acknowledged other religions often experience more severe discrimination and prejudice, she feels that Christianity occupies a different position within Dutch society because the Netherlands has shifted from a predominantly Christian society to a more secular one. And therefore, people feel more comfortable openly criticizing or diminishing Christian values. She explained that she had encountered dismissive comments about her faith in both social and professional settings, and believes that these remarks would not normally be tolerated for other faiths, making her feel unsafe in expressing her beliefs.
Another common topic that many of the participants also resonated with was the fact that consent was never taught to them. Participants of various age groups, different cultural backgrounds, and gender shared that the topic was often taboo in their families and was also ignored in education. One of the women interviewed shared that she learned about consent only from her daughter later in life. While the concept of consent is in fact relatively new, the conversation about boundaries was also uncommon. One of the research participants shared with us that in her culture, having boundaries was considered rude or difficult. She shares that her upbringing in India impacted her integration in the Netherlands. Indian society is quite hierarchical, and for women there are many expectations, such as not to be difficult, loud, or disrespectful. In her experience, when harassment happened to her in the Netherlands, she never knew how to react. She felt confused, disgusted, and disgusting.
Another one of our participants also expressed her struggle with boundaries, as she explained that in her household, her parents did not give her any boundaries, and she related this back to her culture as an Indonesian Dutch woman. This lack of boundaries was expressed by both women in their culture, and it almost set a background tone of what they thought consent was. Again, consent comes in many ways, and one of those ways is through boundary setting. For instance, one of the participants explained how her Dutch partner's parents were very respectful with their son's boundaries, going down to even simple things like knocking on his door before entering his room, which is something she lacked in her own household.
Yeah, another woman that we've interviewed with a Ukrainian background also reflected on boundaries and consent, and she shared with us that in the Netherlands she feels generally safer because people are more mindful of others' boundaries.
Yeah, so true. I mean, I have African parents and they don't respect my boundaries at all.
There's this creator on TikTok, Evelina Silver, that paints women doing daily activities for which they usually get sexualized. The series name is Dirty Minded. She depicts how even the most mundane activities can be perceived as sexual. For example, eating a banana or brushing teeth. The question that she asks is, what makes an action sexual?
Many of the interviewees shared that they were sexualized for their cultural background in the Netherlands. Coming from different cultures, these people shared one thing in common. They're perceived and desired here because of their foreign roots. A Dutch Indian woman shared that she had had many encounters with people who found her exotic or sexy for her skin color, Indian clothes, etc. Nevertheless, being half Dutch also played a role in this, making her otherness less foreign and rather attractive in the eyes of Dutch society.
Another similar experience was described by a Ukrainian woman. She mentioned she almost felt like Slavic women are hunted by Western men. Men want to date or marry a Ukrainian woman because they expect these women to not to have boundaries, to always be and look pretty, to be a perfect housewife, because that was the way these women were raised back home in Ukraine. She also mentioned that many men from Western Europe see their privilege as an asset that can be sold to a woman in a vulnerable position. Think so-called marriage for a passport.
This experience is not only relevant for women, but also for men. One of the male participants shared that he has likely been fetishized because of his Moroccan background, describing conversations with a Dutch woman who said that she had a thing for Moroccans. Finally, he says that he does not think society strongly perpetuates these fetishes, though he thinks people often normalize them as having a type.
This fetishization also includes religious backgrounds. We spoke with two Muslim girls from Bulgaria, and both of them shared that they have heard stories in both Bulgaria and the Netherlands about women who wear burqa or hijab being fetishized. Because it was not commonly seen in the past, women who wear them are viewed as different in Western Europe.
After hearing from people with so many diverse backgrounds, it further established to me that consent can be culturally understood. As you said earlier, it can be tied to boundaries and different cultures. For better or worse, boundaries are cultural, meaning people view consent in various ways.
Also, in regards of consent, most people do not consent to being fetishized. Many people get sexualized for the most normal things, but being an immigrant brings even more unwanted attention. Your skin color, clothes, style, hair, even the way you do your makeup is perceived as looking for attention.
Exactly. It's that whole she was asking for it mentality. This is why we need to have more conversations about consent and how it's taught to prevent fetishization. We hope that this convo you reflect on how you were taught about consent and maybe how you wish it will be taught in the future.
And this conversation aims to encourage you to advocate and demand change, accessible resources that allow people to deal with these situations.
We hope by us having this open dialogue about how various cultural backgrounds, migration, and social experiences shape understanding of consent and belonging brought some awareness to the nuances of this topic. After hearing all this, we encourage you to think more about inclusion in the society in which you reside and how you can advocate for those who do not have the power to advocate for themselves.
We view topics of identity, belonging, fetishization, and consent as an ongoing conversation that should never be static, and we hope that podcast inspires you to continue these conversations in your own life.
We also created a physical art piece that reflected the themes we researched here today. So make sure you check that out as well at Amarta in The Hague on July 17th, 2026. Bye-bye.
Bye!
Thanks for listening.